Page 119. Okay, so they decided they're going to use Morse code when the kids are infiltrating the school. Morse code, Renee cried, amazed. Nobody uses Morse code anymore, said Kate. Precisely. That's why it's useful to us, said Mr. Benedict. As you may know, the Institute is located on Nomasan Island, which lies in Stonetown Harbor, a half-mile out. From a hidden position on the mainland shore, we shall constantly watch the island. Every day and every night, at every moment, your signals will be watched for. It will be up to you to choose the safest time, but we'll be ready for it. But we leave tomorrow and we don't even know Morse code, Constance complained. Actually, I do, said Sticky. I can teach you if you like. Constance stuck out her tongue at him. You're all quick learners, said Mr. Benedict. I have no worries about that. And Constance, he said, raising an eyebrow, I advise you to take Sticky up on his offer, for this is an important point I wish to discuss. You are a team now. Whether you always agree is inconsequential, but you must take care of each other. You must rely upon each other in all things. I don't exaggerate when I say that every one of you is essential to the success of this team, and indeed to the fate of us all. You must remember that. Constance rolled her eyes. Okay, fine, George Washington. You can teach me stinky Morse code. Call me Sticky, please. Just plain Sticky is fine. You don't have to use my last name. When do we begin? George Washington. Sticky scowled. Don't call me that. Kate leaned over to Renee and whispered, I think we have more trouble than Mr. Benedict expects. It was suggested the children study Morse code in the dining room, but the afternoon was so beautiful and the shady courtyard so inviting, they begged to pack lunches and study outside. Mr. Benedict agreed on the condition that no one venture beyond the gate, and that Milligan accompany them. So out they went into the courtyard, where Sticky and Constance now sat on a stone bench under the elm tree, while Kate and Renee sprawled on the ivy-covered earth nearby. Milligan, disguised as a gray-haired gardener in a straw hat, puttered gloomily about the iron fence, tending to the rose bushes. It's a simple code, Sticky was explaining. It uses dots and dashes, short signals and long signals, to stand for letters and numbers. The letter A, for example, is made with one short signal and one long signal, or a dot and a dash. Here, I'll show you. Borrowing Kate's flashlight, Kate had her bucket with her as always. Sticky turned it on and off again very quickly. That was the short signal, the dot, he said. Then he turned it on for a full second, and that's the long signal, the dash. Together they make an A, and the other letters are much the same. B is dash and 3 dots. C is dash dot dash dot, and so on. It's all written out right here, he said, pointing to the charts Mr. Benedict had given him. Let's practice, Sticky said. Constance, use the flashlight and the chart to spell out a message, and we'll figure out what you're saying. Constance's hands were so small that she needed both of them to hold the flashlight. So Sticky held the chart up for her. Squinting at the paper in concentration, she flashed the light once very quickly and followed this with 2 longer flashes, then paused. Dot dash dash, Sticky said. Kate referenced her chart and said, That's a W, isn't it? Constance nodded and flashed the light again. 4 quick signals. 4 dots, said Renee. That's an H. Again, Constance nodded, and in this way they proceeded through the rest of the message. As Mr. Benedict had remarked, they were all quick learners, and even so, it took them several minutes for everyone but Sticky had to keep checking the charts. Finally, though, Constance flashed the code for her last letter, dash, dot, and N, and then looked expectantly at Sticky, who immediately began to fidget. The message had been, Why did you run? Hey, that is a good question, Kate said. Why did you run away, Sticky? It wouldn't take too long to answer in code. It would take too long to answer in code, Sticky said. Let's just practice with a different message, something short. Skip the code and tell us, Kate insisted. If we're going to be a team, we should get to know each other better. Don't you think, Renee? She's right, Renee said. It's best that we all know. I suppose so, Sticky said miserably, but it isn't a very pleasant story to tell. Nor was it a pleasant story to hear. And as Sticky told it, the children's faces grew long, so that they resembled miniature versions of Milligan, who had, in his silent way, drawn close to listen. It turned out that Sticky had once been quite content in his life, the agreeable child of agreeable parents, but the situation changed once his gifts became known. This happened one April day when his mother, whose knees were arthritic and whose wheelchair needed extra oil in damp weather, wondered aloud in a rare fit of irritation why it had to rain so much. As Sticky helped his mother into her chair, he launched into a detailed explanation of weather systems and local geography. He had always been a shy, silent child, but this was the first time he'd given any hint of his considerable knowledge. His mother checked him for a fever. That evening, she told his father, who asked Sticky to repeat what he had said before. Sticky did, word for word. His father had to sit down. Then he rose again, went into the den, and returned carrying several volumes of an outdated encyclopedia. Questioning Sticky whether the Washingtons discovered that their son, who was only 7 at the time, carried more information inside his head than a college professor. Perhaps 2 professors, with an engineer thrown in to boot. Astounded and proud, they could hardly have been more excited if they'd found buried treasure. And in a way they had, for right away they began entering him in quiz competitions, which Sticky won easily. He took home substantial prizes, a new encyclopedia to replace the outdated one, a new writing desk, a cash prize, a savings bond. The more Sticky won, the more excited his parents grew. They encouraged him to study constantly and read through their meals together, and stay up late reading, to stop wasting time with his friends, to pressure to win began to distract him. His parents grew angry when he missed questions, which he began to do more and more as he tended to get mixed up with nervousness. And they scolded him for not caring about them. If Sticky cared, they said, he would try harder to win, since only by winning would he bring wealth and happiness to the family. This came as a surprise to Sticky, who knew they'd never been wealthy, but hadn't realized they were unhappy. And for him, it was difficult. The more he won, the unhappier he became. But though he sometimes missed questions whose answers he knew, he still won the contests easily, gaining admission to bigger contests with bigger prizes, until at last his parents were perfectly dazzled by the prospect of fortune, and Sticky was perfectly exhausted. Despite complaining and even begging, however, he couldn't persuade them to let him stop. If he wanted to be rich and famous, they said, he must keep winning. When he replied that he didn't care to be rich and famous, and they didn't believe him, and they said he was only being lazy. Finally, Sticky decided to make a point by pretending to run away. He left a note, then hid for several days in a cellar closet his parents thought was boarded up, but which Sticky had found a way to enter. From there, he was able to venture forth to sneak food, use the bathroom, and do little spying on his parents. At first, he was pleased by what he saw. The Washingtons were extremely distressed, had raised an outcry about their lost son, seeking help from all quarters. But then, something unfortunate happened. A rich man, himself a former quiz champion, heard of the case and gave a large sum of money to the Washingtons to aid their search. Word of his generosity quickly got around, which inspired other philanthropists, unwilling to be outdone, to send even more money. And before long, people everywhere were sending gifts to the Washingtons, who were growing rich. To his great astonishment and mortification, Sticky saw his parents begin trying less and less to find him, instead devoting their time and energy toward the proper disposal of their newfound riches. At last, one day, when he managed to overhear his father saying something about being better off now, better off with him gone, Sticky realized he could no longer bear their betrayal. He ran away for good. Oh my gosh. That was a sad story. He wasn't joking about that being a sad story. All right, we'll stop there.